Esther Lungu's heartbreaking Christmas message: widows celebrate alone in Zambia. While much of the country gathers in joy, laughter, and celebration, one home is wrapped in silence. This Christmas, Esther Lungu describes a season not of cheer, but of pain, emptiness, and mourning. Her words are raw. Her tone is heavy. And her message forces the nation to confront a question rarely asked during the holidays. What does Christmas mean when the person who defined your life is no longer there? Tonight, we listen not to politics, but to grief. Good day, viewers. Welcome to another edition of the InspirAfrica Official. I'm Nakash. Well, here we are, just past Christmas Day 2024, and I hope you and your loved ones had a wonderful celebration. The festive season is supposed to be about joy, family, and togetherness, isn't it? But today, we're diving into a story that reminds us how that joy isn't equally distributed across our African continent. Our lead story today takes us to Zambia, where a Christmas message has sent shockwaves through social media and reopened conversations about power, privilege, and the silent suffering of those left behind. Picture this: Christmas morning in Lusaka. While families gather around tables laden with food, while children tear open presents, while laughter echoes through comfortable homes, imagine being a widow. Imagine your husband, who once walked the corridors of power, now gone. Imagine the friends who once filled your home, the supporters who once sang your praises, the officials who once sought your favor, all vanished like morning mist. What happens to the wives of fallen leaders? When the spotlight moves on, when the political machinery grinds forward without them, when yesterday's power becomes today's irrelevance, who remembers them? Who checks on them? Who ensures they're not celebrating Christmas alone, surrounded by memories and emptiness? And what does it say about us as a society when a former First Lady has to take to social media on Christmas Day to remind the nation that widows exist? That they hurt? That they're celebrating alone while the rest of us feast with family? Is this the legacy we want to leave? Is this how we honor those who once served? Or is this simply the brutal, unspoken truth about political power, that loyalty lasts only as long as relevance? Factual foundation. The revelation came to light on December 25, 2024, when Esther Lungu, widow of Zambia's 6th President Edgar Chagwa Lungu, posted a poignant message on her social media platforms. For those who need context, Edgar Lungu served as President of Zambia from January 2015 to August 2021, leading the Patriotic Front Party. He passed away earlier in 2024, leaving behind Esther and their family. The transition was devastating not just personally, but politically. The Patriotic Front, which once dominated Zambian politics, was swept from power in the 2021 elections by Hakainde Hichilema's United Party for National Development. Mrs. Lungu's Christmas Day post wasn't her first public statement since her husband's passing, but it carried a particular weight because of its timing. While Zambians were celebrating with their families, she chose that moment to speak about something she'd clearly been observing, something that had been weighing on her heart. The message specifically addressed the plight of widows across Zambia, particularly those whose husbands had been in political circles. According to sources close to the former First Lady, she had spent the weeks leading up to Christmas reaching out to various widows, checking on their welfare, and discovering a troubling pattern. Many were alone. Many had been forgotten. Many had watched their social circles evaporate after their husbands' deaths. The post quickly gained traction on Zambian social media, with thousands of shares within the first few hours. Political commentators, civil society activists, and ordinary Zambians began responding, some with empathy, others with criticism, and still others with their own stories of abandonment and forgotten loyalty. Direct evidence. In her Christmas message, Esther Lungu wrote, and I quote directly from her post: "On this special day of celebrating the birth of our Lord Jesus Christ, my heart is heavy with thoughts of the many widows across our nation who are celebrating alone. Christmas is meant to be a time of joy, family, and togetherness, yet for so many women who have lost their husbands, this day brings profound loneliness." She continued, "I've spoken to several widows in recent weeks, women whose husbands once served this nation in various capacities, women who stood beside their husbands through thick and thin, through campaigns and controversies, through victories and defeats. And do you know what they've told me? They've told me that the friends disappeared. The colleagues stopped calling. The party members who once filled their homes vanished. The message went deeper. These are women who gave their lives to supporting their husband's service to Zambia. They opened their homes, they fed the hungry, they comforted the grieving, they stood in the background while their husbands took the spotlight. And now they sit alone on Christmas Day, wondering if anyone remembers them at all. Mrs. Lungu then issued what many interpreted as a challenge to Zambian society. I want to ask every person who considers themselves loyal, every person who claims to honor service, every person who benefits from the work these men did, when last did you check on their widows? When last did you send a message? When last did you ensure they weren't celebrating Christmas alone? She concluded with a spiritual appeal. Our Lord Jesus taught us to care for widows and orphans. He made it clear that true religion is about looking after those who cannot look after themselves. So today, as you celebrate with your families, I'm asking you to remember the widows. Send a message. Make a call. Share a meal. Don't let them celebrate alone. The response was immediate and divided. One prominent political analyst, speaking on a local radio station the following day, said, I think what Mrs. Lungu has done is brave, actually. Because she's speaking about something we all know but nobody wants to address. The truth is, when you're in power, everyone wants to be your friend. But the moment you're out, the moment you lose that position, people disappear. And for widows, it's even worse. A former minister who served under President Lungu, speaking on condition of anonymity, told reporters, "She's not wrong. I've seen it myself. There are people who used to come to our homes every week when my colleague was alive. They'd eat our food, they'd ask for favors, they'd pledge eternal loyalty. And now his widow can't even get them to return a phone call. It's shameful, really." However, critics also emerged. A social media commentator with ties to the ruling UPND party wrote, "With all due respect to Mrs. Lungu, where was this concern for widows when her husband was in power? There were plenty of widows suffering then too. This feels less like genuine concern and more like political positioning." Deeper analysis. Mrs. Lungu's Christmas message has reopened several uncomfortable conversations about Zambian politics and society at large. First, there's the question of political loyalty. In many African democracies, including Zambia, political relationships are often transactional. People align themselves with power, not necessarily with principles or personal relationships. When that power shifts, so do the alliances. For widows of former officials, this creates a particularly cruel situation. They watched their husbands sacrifice time, energy, and sometimes their health for political causes, only to be abandoned when the political winds changed direction. Second, there's a broader cultural issue about how widows are treated across African societies. Despite modernization and urbanization, many communities still marginalize widows. They lose social status, financial security, and often their sense of identity. When you combine this cultural marginalization with political abandonment, the result is profound isolation. Political scientists have noted that Mrs. Lungu's message also serves as an indirect critique of the current administration. While she didn't mention President Hichilema or the UPND by name, the implication was clear. Those who once benefited from her husband's leadership have not maintained relationships with his widow. This raises questions about political maturity and reconciliation in Zambian society. Dr. Chanda Mwape, a sociologist at the University of Zambia, told local media, "What we're seeing here is a collision between traditional expectations of community care and modern political realities. In traditional Zambian culture, the community was supposed to care for widows. But in modern political culture, relationships are strategic." Mrs. Lungu is calling out this disconnect. Human rights organizations have also weighed in. ActionAid Zambia issued a statement supporting Mrs. Lungu's message, noting that widows across the country, regardless of their social status, face systematic neglect and discrimination. They called for stronger social protection systems and community-based support networks. But perhaps the most important aspect of this story is what it reveals about our collective values. Are we a society that honors service, or do we only honor power? Do we care for people, or do we care for positions? And when someone falls from prominence, do we have the moral courage to maintain our relationships, or do we simply move on to the next powerful person? These are questions that extend far beyond Zambia, far beyond Mrs. Lungu, and far beyond this particular Christmas message. They're questions about who we are as African societies, and who we want to become. Well, viewers, that's the story of Esther Lungu's heartbreaking Christmas message and the conversation it sparked about widows celebrating alone in Zambia. I want to hear from you. What do you think about Mrs. Lungu's message? Have you seen this pattern in your own country or community? How should we treat the families of former leaders? And more broadly, how can we build societies that don't abandon people when they lose power or status? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's have a real conversation about this. Thank you so much for watching today's edition of InspirAfrica Official. I appreciate each and every one of you for taking the time to stay informed about what's happening across our beautiful continent. Stories like these matter because they remind us of our shared humanity and our collective responsibility to care for one another. I'll be back tomorrow with more news, more stories, and more conversations that matter. Until then, take care of yourselves, check on someone who might be alone, and remember, real strength is measured not by how we treat the powerful, but by how we treat those who have lost their power. This is Nakash, signing off. See you tomorrow, and God bless.